Hello, my name is Astrid Bertrand. I'm a PhD student at the Institut Polytechnique de Paris, and I'll present today our CHI 2024 paper on model explainability and justifiability in the context of financial crime detection. Today in Europe, 200 billion euros in criminal funds circulate every year. And only 1% of those funds are actually confiscated through the means of anti-money laundering systems that banks implement. What that means is that current anti-money laundering systems are largely ineffective. In addition to that, they are rule-based and extremely costly for banks to implement. AI can help improve those systems, but it creates regulatory uncertainty. It means that we don't know how supervisors will react when auditing those systems, whether they will consider AI as compliant to anti-money laundering laws. AI systems used in AML-CFT typically can tackle financial data in order to trigger anti-money laundering alerts, so suspicions of money laundering or financial terrorism. We need some kind of transparency in those AI systems, though, whether it's for a case investigator in the bank that wants to understand why the alert was generated, or whether it's for the data scientists of the bank who wants to know how to debug the system or to improve it. Supervisors that conduct audits of those systems also want to understand whether the anti-money laundering system of the bank is compliant with regard to the AML-CFT laws that apply here. In this paper, we focus on supervisors. We explored their user needs and legal requirements for AI explainability and justifiability. Our research questions are as follows. First, we wanted to describe what are the regulatory supervisors' current auditing practices and socio-technical context. We also wanted to understand precisely how does AI opacity conflict with anti-money laundering compliance requirements. Then we describe what are the needs of supervisors for AI justifiability. To address those questions, we used a dual HCI and legal approach. We first conducted scenario-based workshops. 5 workshops were done with participants from the supervisory authority in anti-money laundering in France, and 1 workshop was done with AML-CFT practitioners from a large French bank. In those workshops, we discussed 2 scenarios of AI use in an anti-money laundering. The first AI use was AI on top of the legacy rule-based system of the bank in order to trigger additional new alerts. The second AI use case is to manage the alerts that are generated by the rule-based system of the bank. So either to prioritize them or to automatically close the ones that are irrelevant. In parallel to that, we conducted empirical legal research. So what we did here is that we analyzed a corpus of case law from the sanctions committee in anti-money laundering in France. We identified the main legal compliance theme in AML-CFT. And for each of those themes, we wondered whether AI opacity was a problem. After that, we conducted 2 feedback interviews with 2 supervisors from the supervisory authority in France in order to get feedback from our results. The second part of our results consists in depicting the socio-techno-legal context of supervisors in anti-money laundering. So we describe how supervisors are organized in practice. We also describe 3 main auditing approaches that they have. The first one is the global one. It means that they use any kind of metrics that they can find or that the banks give them on the efficiency of the system. So it can be the number of alerts or the number of suspicious activity reports that are generated by the system as a whole or parts of the system. The second type of approach is from global to local. Here, supervisors use an AI system in order to have a holistic view of a bank's data. And this is useful for them to identify failure cases, so errors in the system. So they used their AI subtech tool in order to sample cases to investigate. Then the local to global approach is the opposite. Starting from an error that they found, they want to establish the reprehensibility of that error to the whole system. The second part of the results that we have is the depiction of the provisions in anti-money laundering laws that conflict with AI opacity. The first legal theme that conflicts with AI opacity is the adaptation of the anti-money laundering system to the bank's risk classification. Here, banks have to justify that the AI parameters are aligned with the human expertise. The second legal theme is careful examination. That means that banks have to be able to detect any kind of anomaly that arises. There needs to be some kind of transparency on the system to justify this. The third theme is enhanced vigilance and suspicious activity report obligation. That means that bank analysts have to be able to understand alerts. The fourth theme is internal control. So banks here have to be able to detect any incidents that can arise on the device that they use, and they have to demonstrate that they have control over the device that they use. Finally, the banks also have to justify the correct allocation of the materials that they used and the human resources. They have to justify that there is some kind of balance between human expertise and AI systems. Explainability can be useful here to demonstrate that complementarity. The third part of our results consists in listing the supervisor's needs for model explainability and justifiability. So first, we find that supervisors need to have a general comprehension of why was an AI implemented in that bank? What is the motivation for using AI here? Second, supervisors have to demonstrate the legitimacy of the AI tool that they use in order to respect the due process of banks. Third, supervisors need to measure the efficiency of banks' system. They also need to establish the reprehensibility of sampled failure cases and to verify and challenge banks' understanding of AI systems. That means that they have to verify that banks' analysts are able to understand alerts, that the decision criteria of AI is aligned with human expertise, and that model control is demonstrated. In the discussion, we argue that anti-money laundering CFT illustrates the tension of using AI in a particularly regulated environment. We also argue that current explainability techniques are incomplete and uncertain, but that they can alleviate this tension. Finally, we discussed that explanations have a role of trial evidence for justifications of AI behavior. So justifications have to rely on some kind of evidence, proof that explanations can provide. Thank you for your attention.